Hi, my name is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester, Massachusetts area, and she and her team are just fantastic. We're very fortunate to have you with us every week, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And it's our pleasure. We would like to talk today about how you can save more money on your court cases. A lot of money is wasted on arguing over senseless things. So, we're going to be talking about that today and hopefully saving you guys a lot of money. Divorce is not a happy time for a couple, and there are a lot of insults that get slung back and forth. Should I tell my attorney if my ex is insulting me and putting me down constantly?
You can, or you can just keep a log of it. Some of these things are going to be the obvious. You can call me up to tell me that last night he decided to do this, this, and this. Great. I'll listen to you. I'll write down the information. I'll log it for your file. I might give you advice on it. It might be something that doesn't need advice. And then you're going to hang up. And then the next day he's going to do the exact same thing. And we're going to have a conversation, and then we're going to talk, and we're going to have the money. So again, each time you're doing this, it's costing you money. So the answer is yes, but do it appropriately. Do it in a more proficient manner so that you're not calling me every day or 5 times a day, and I'm having to bill you for that. The more appropriate manner is to jot it down, put it together in some cohesive manner. This is what happened on this day. This is the appropriate text. Here they are attached. I'm going to leave it. Next day, okay, something happened. And then, 2 weeks before court, here you go, Nicole. Here's the 25 things that I want you to know about what's been going on. And then have a 5-minute conversation if you feel like it's necessary to summarize it. Now, obviously, if there's something that's really important that I really need to know about, he hit you. Well, obviously, I need to know about that. We need to talk about our options, whether it be getting a restraining order, asking him to move out of the house, whatever the case may be. But short of that, a lot of these are just diary it, log it, and then let me know at the appropriate time.
And it must be tough too, because you are such an empathetic person. And I'm sure that there are other empathetic attorneys out there that feel the same way. And, it's just, you feel like you're talking to your friend and you need to tell them because you really care and can help do something about it, as opposed to all the other friends that they might have and family members that they tell their crazy stories to. So, I mean, there is an issue. Do you see that a lot where people just want to tell you everything?
They really do. And I get it. I try to be empathetic. I try to listen, and I do care about your case, and I do care about you. But again, it comes at a price. So you really have to figure out what is important to tell me. I get that I am a counselor, but I'm not that type of counselor. So maybe you go see a psychiatrist or somebody else that you can actually talk to these issues about, because I can't help you in many mental health issues. I can only help you in the legal issues. So while I'm happy to listen, happy to get the information, happy to come up with a strategy, it doesn't require an everyday strategy.
Here's an interesting situation. Uh, a lot of couples don't like to talk when they've broken up, especially when they're going through a court case. And sometimes every single thing is passed through the attorney that they want to say, and then you get charged for it. What can you do to end that craziness?
Depends. Sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes if it's your ex's attorney that's sending me messages every day, sometimes it's just a quick response. Sometimes it's me pawning it off on a staff member to go, hey, address this with the attorney. A lot of times we'll again gather that intel, and when there's 3 or 4 things to respond to, we'll respond to them. So if you do have a paper pusher on the other side that really is just harassing us, again, I do have to respond, and I do have to respond timely, but I don't have to respond the same day. So if they're doing that and they're doing it in a sequence of, multiple events, again, maybe I wait a week and then I, put them all together. So that's one option. The other option is that, some of it doesn't even warrant a response. Some of it is I hand it off to somebody in my staff, and that's, getting charged less per hour. And they respond to it, because it's a simple, no, I don't have that document. I've already told you we don't have it. When we get it, we'll send it off to you. Something like that. Please send all correspondence to me at staff at whatever, versus sending it to Nicole. So there's ways that we can get around it. The other way is, I don't have to necessarily be full representation. If I'm limited representation, then they don't need to talk to me at all. So that's another option where you get to be the judge as to when I get involved. So we certainly have options there. It's the question is what's going to work best for you. Sometimes people are intimidated by the other attorney simply because they're trying to be a bully. And sometimes it's because they just don't know how to talk to them. But again, depends on your level of skill and ability and wanting to do that.
Wow, I hadn't realized that you could do a limited representation. That's a great solution to that sort of problem. And then you don't have to worry about someone nickel and diming you or trying to run the bill up on you. It's not your attorney's fault. They're required to if they're fully representing you. But that's amazing. That's a really good solution.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So let's talk about your ex's finances. It's always a good idea to find out about that when you're going through any court case. And, there's probably more than a lot of people out there that know nothing about their ex's finances. Even when they were together, they just didn't share that information, and they are quite surprised. Sometimes they're surprised because they're heading for bankruptcy as a couple, and sometimes they're surprised that their ex is a millionaire and they thought that they were living check to check. And there's a lot of craziness that goes on there. But is there an inexpensive way to really be able to delve into your ex's finances without having to hire an expensive forensics accountant, for example?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a couple different ways. The first one is going to be mandatory discovery. And that's exactly what it sounds like, mandatory. Both of you are required to exchange certain documentation. And it's basically 3 years of all records, your bank statements, your 401k statements, your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your credit card statements, your tax returns, stuff of that nature. So we're going to get those automatic. Again, mandatory, so should be less expensive. And maybe we have to do a motion to compel, but absolutely mandatory to exchange those. The other thing you can do is you can walk around your house. Depending on whether or not you lived in that house together with that person, go back and look at, I know we kept all of the records in the closet. Let me go back and look. Look at old tax returns, at least if nothing else, to see the W-2s and the 1099s and all of those things that are attached, because now maybe you didn't know that you had a Fidelity account, but you have a 1099 in, and you're like, hey, what's that? Now at least you know where you're supposed to be looking. So these are the good ways to kind of figure out what you have cheaply. Obviously, again, once we kind of know the basics and know some of that information, then we can do discovery, which could be costly, but could save you money. Again, if parties are working together like adults, then we would send out requests for production of documents. So we'd ask them for those things. Well, you didn't produce your Fidelity account that we know we have this int for. Let me ask for that and go from there. So that's obviously a cheaper way to do it. We could ultimately have to subpoena those records, which is going to cost you a little bit more money. So there's degrees of varying costs, but obviously my thing is go research your house. Your house is a great starting point. So many people, before they even get divorced or they're thinking about it, they start rummaging through everything and say, okay, I'm here today. You have to make copies of all of this and I have to go put it back. Fine. That's what we're here for. I'm happy to do that. That gives us a great starting point so that we know what those assets are. So again, even if you put them back, your spouse doesn't know that you've done it because they're at work. And now we at least have something to start with and then move on to what other documentation we need, what are we missing, and where we go from there.
I mean, those are really good suggestions. Obviously, there's a lot that you can get your hands on before you have to go and hire experts. And sometimes, unfortunately, those documents aren't supplied to you, or they just, really take their time, or they might mix them all up on you. There's a lot of crazy stories. Have you seen a lot of that?
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that, again, if somebody's going to give it to me out of order, I might actually say, "Hey, Erica, why don't you come in, since this is your ex that's doing this? Come in, organize it, find out what we're missing. We'll make copies of it, and then we can have a conversation together as to what we're missing." But again, you're saving me time for having to sort through all of the crap that I got that's mismatched. And there you go. Now you're handing me one document that's this thick, but you're also saying we're missing this statement, this statement, this statement. It's much easier for me to do that rather than us putting it together. So certainly you can help in your process.
Plus, a lot of times you'll know more what to look for because you live that life and you know which expenses that you have. So I think that that's pretty helpful.
Oh, I always tell my clients, regardless of where it comes from, look it over, make sure you tell me anything. Because again, that's exactly it. I don't know. I can know, hey, look, you're spending $5,000 at, Starbucks a year. Oh, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? Oh, well, we have this going on. Okay, fine. Maybe it's a legitimate, maybe it's a corporate thing that you're getting reimbursed for. Maybe it's just I'm going out and spending money foolishly. You have people that are going to the casino and there's a whole bunch of ATM things. There's people that are going out to the liquor stores on a regular basis. These are the things that I look for, but I'm not going to know that you're sitting there saying, "Oh, look, there's 25 times that he's gone to this place and this is what he's buying there." I have no way of knowing that other than by you telling me. So I always encourage my clients to look through everything, because you're looking at it through a different lens than I am. I'm looking for those high value, one-time purchases, one-time withdrawals. Where is that going? Oh, there's a $5,000 withdrawal. Oh, do I have a deposit somewhere? You're not looking at it with those eyes. You're looking at it as, oh, look, he spent $5,000 at Bass Pro Shop.
And of course he needed that for his business.
Of course.
So why don't we talk about, one of the other ways to close a case is to settle. Some attorneys will just go for the settlement because they're sick of dealing with it, or they just really don't see the end going well. They just see that it's going to keep going on and on and on, and there's a lot of senseless spending on law bills if someone's fighting over the lawnmower, for example. So do you have to just go with whatever your ex says if you're going to settle?
No, but you have to know when to cut your losses. Again, at our hourly rates, how much do you want to fight over that $100 lawnmower? Really? I mean, I can't tell you enough that the judges have said this. Counsel, we're fighting over $100. You've spent more than $100 standing here before me arguing this point. And then we go back again. A month later, we're fighting over the same thing. And the judge says again, counsel, how much money are you guys wasting on attorney's fees to address this stupid issue of a $100 lawnmower? Why can't you settle it? And sometimes it's the parties need to hear that. A lot of times it's one person that's holding out, and one person needs to go, whatever, I don't care anymore. And sometimes it does take that. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person, because fighting over principle is just costing you money. And I'm not in the business to, get rich off of you. I'm in the business to help you. Yes, I'm obviously in a business, and yes, I want to get paid, but I don't need to nickel and dime you over something that's going to cost you in the long run. I always want to do a cost analysis with you. I want to say, look, why are you spending $300 on this argument when you're only looking to make $100 off of it? I'm going to lay it out for you in such a way that I hope you're going to, get over reason and go, wait a minute, you're right. Why am I wasting my money on that? Because principle costs too much, and it's not going to be in your best interest.
And that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes it's that voice of reason. I know that in the past we've talked about, well, if you want to fight over how often you get your kids, that's $100,000 battle if you have to go to trial. If you want to fight over the car, it's going to be a $30,000 battle. Why don't you just go buy a new car? I mean, there's a lot to be said for fighting for the appropriate thing. I mean, I know someone who spent $100,000 on getting 60% instead of 50% of custody. And now they're like, I really do enjoy that break, that 40% break. Why did I spend all that money for that extra 10%? It's definitely at the time, people's tempers are incensed and they aren't thinking clearly. And that's why we have you, Nicole. and I should just say that, you and your team are amazing. So if anyone watching this is going through family court for any reason, absolutely give them a call and see what they say, because they have great strategies and they're very level-headed, and they can tell you what's worth fighting for and what isn't, and save you a lot of money. So what else do you have to tell us about saving money? Is there anything that I missed in the questions that I asked?
I think, I would think overall, it's just one of those things that, be willing to negotiate, whether it be going to a mediator, conciliator, or just negotiating with your attorneys through your attorneys. Be willing to budge. Some things again are, well, I really can't do this because it's detrimental to my child. Okay, that's different than principle. And sometimes me as an attorney, I have to go, I get it. Okay, we'll fight. But I also have to tell you the pros and cons. And sometimes the con is, great, we fight and we lose. And guess what? The child is now spending more time than what even he's proposing. So you've got to really run that risk analysis. Again, sometimes it's absolutely worth it because we're talking about children, we're talking about their danger and their safety and all of those issues that come into play. But sometimes you have to look at the big picture and go, well, is an extra 2 hours really going to kill my child? Probably not. Again, depending on the circumstances. So it's something that you really have to weigh the pros and cons on. So I think when we're talking about, physical abuse and physical issues with resulting with the children, then yes, we definitely need to do a different analysis. When we're talking about money, we're talking about money, people. You could always make more. And that's the simple fact of the matter is, all too often, everyone wants to talk to me about principal. Principal costs a lot of money. And a lot of times, again, I'm going to weigh that analysis. I'm going to go through that and go, okay, great. You're going to spend $10,000 to make $5,000. You want to do it? That's great. But I need to educate you. And realistically, you need to listen to me, because I'm not talking to hear myself talk. I'm really not. I'm talking because I'm giving you the best advice I can, knowing the judges, knowing the situation, knowing what the case law is. And I'm happy to let everyone go ahead and get a second opinion. But the reality is, they're probably not going to tell you anything different.
That's right. And you heard it here first. Because there are definitely times where I know that you've told me things about my case that happened a long time ago. And not even that I was going against anything that you were saying, but just predicting the future. And I was shocked. I'm like, no, we're friends. That'll never happen. People get ugly the longer that they're in a fight like this, and the more you find out. So, you see it every day over and over again. So it's easy for you to predict. But for people just going through it, it's really nice to have that insight, and definitely listen to them when they tell you that.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because the reality is, I can see it because, again, you're close to the situation. You're not necessarily seeing things. I'm going, I've seen this pattern 1,000 times over. And 90% of the time I'm right. Because, again, a leopard doesn't change its spots. I'm listening to you about things that you're going, I'm too close to, this is happening. Well, it doesn't mean anything to you. It means a lot to me. And again, I'm going to follow that pattern and be able to hopefully advise you to guide you in the right direction.
What's also interesting is that when you're going through something like this, you don't think that anyone else has gone through it exactly as you have. And then you start hearing stories and they're like, oh yeah, that happened to my sister, or that happened to me, or like my brother, crazy stories where you wouldn't believe that it's happened to more people than you think, and that you're actually not special in that way. So there are definitely great strategies because it's happened before and people know. Attorneys know that are really good in their craft and that deal with this every day. So we absolutely appreciate having a fantastic legal mind like yourself around.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to thank everyone for listening today. This has been incredible information. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to give Nicole in her office a call. And we look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a great weekend.